So, welcome. Today I'll start with a saying, a remark, an insight, a very meaningful insight by Teilhard de Chardin. You might not have heard his name. He was a French philosopher, Jesuit, pater, paleontologist, and the forerunner of the spiritual evolution, continuing the biological evolution, which is more known. And I make sure already now that we need to understand that we are into the spiritual evolution. And he said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that is very, very important now for continuing our path. We are still biological beings. When we are coming to these kind of retreats and seminars and so on, we mostly come because our life situation has two experiences. One is that of a joy and happiness and harmony and these kind of things, But most of the time, life is not that glorious. It's filled with sorrow, anxieties, and it often says life is suffering. And we come here, or to wherever we hope for gurus and masters and religious people and I don't know what, and coaches and whatever is available to lessen the suffering and to raise the happiness. And somehow, whatever we did and how much money we paid for that, it still doesn't work. And nobody knows why. Something is wrong with us. We don't do the practice properly. We have a bad karma, and so on and so on. You have heard me often, or some of you have heard me often talking about the smallest, a creature, element, and living cell, the paramethium. And I do it for a very special purpose. Because it's not seen as an animal or any kind of a vital something, or in any way to compare with us. It does not have senses, properly senses. It does not have a nervous system. It doesn't have brains, and so on and so on. But when we study that living being, it has ways to live and experience and be with its environment to be in existence with certain ways and structures which are absolutely the same as with us. I don't go through that anymore. But the most important point for that is that this non-living element has a knowledge, so to say, that it is here to survive. The survival mode is kind of primordial. It's built in. And all the rest it has is geared toward that. The parameters, the knowledge about that, the behavior, and so on and so on. Everything is built on that to ensure this one. And I talk so often about that to make us clear. These structures, these ways are our biological heritage. And we behave in the same way. And we try, as human beings, everything to get out of that. And naturally, it cannot work because it's inherent in us. So, I have gone through many of these attempts to get out of that. And my first spiritual station, so to say, was bliss. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, and we all were happy and drummed and danced and were blissful. Ecstasy. Ecstasy was his kind of that way. And we had so much problems, relationship problems. And at the end, the ranch, the biggest place, spiritual place, got shut down, and the main people got in prison. Ecstasy. Okay? And so many structures, so many teachings, and so many so-called spiritual approaches try to get out of that. The very beginning of tackle that biological structure was heaven. You get out of that, no problem. Well, you know, here it's a bit of a difficult, but be confident. One day, provided you behave properly, you will get up and have internal life. And so people wait. They endure because they're promised one day you up there. The same kind of thing, you know, kind of tricky. So you endure. And you hear these kind of things to teach you, okay, there is internal whatsoever. The latest run, so to say, is the experience after death. Have you heard that about these things? You know, meters of experiences to make sure there's no end. Okay, so we'll keep on going. We are not Christians. We don't need God. But when you read these experiences, there is a kind of an angel coming to you. Have you read these kind of things? Mm-hmm. You meet your angel and he comes and brings you back home. And, same thing. Try to get rid of that. Try to get rid of that. Try to enhance that. Try to get rid of that. And it never worked. And whatever is happening on this big market of so-called spirituality is juggling about that. So there is now coaches and whatsoever to bring you out of your parameters. Replace them to something. You now think differently, you behave differently. And at home you are the same. And we all wonder why. Because with all this, we don't leave the biological mind. As long as we have the biological mind, we think that way, we behave that way, we have the parameters, we have the emotions, and all the rest of it because we need to have it. And we have it. Try whatever you can. I do know how tricky all that is. I remember quite well whenever Thai gave his last Dharmatalks, he would talk about no birth and no death. And everybody was happy. Finally, we got it. We can live that way. But actually, it's not true. It's a kind of an illusion. We simply does not get something, though you don't get an experience of that. It's an idea. It is a kind of something which is the same idea as a heaven and the experience after death. Because there is no real experience, neither of God or whatsoever, you can't get rid of it because it is inbuilt. And this kind of telling you that constantly should give you a kind of realization about that. You see, we try to get out of that. For example, we believe that these people who report after their obvious death, that they have seen lights and angels. One of our spiritual ancestors, one of the Chinese, old Chinese ones, it's reported he had an incident with someone who addressed him and said, "Now, tell me, what's happening after death?" And he shouted at him, "You fool, you have to someone who had been dead. I'm here, and I'm here for life. The rest is fantasy." That is my upbringing. That is my way to practice. To look, is there anything real about that? Is there anything I can experience that this is the biological mind, and only that? It's amazing what we all do to get a proof that we have left that. So nobody has ever have a proof of God. Nobody, or at least a large population, does not deny that, though there is no proof. And the funny, or not funny, kind of weird logic is because there is no proof, it proves that it's a proof. Well, I don't continue in this way today. You see, what I observe is this kind of hankering to be sure, you know. And most of the time we are not sure, you know. It's a belief, it's a hearsaying, it's something which cannot be experienced. It is just someone has said, and something which does not really bring us out. Jack Kornfield, one of the main Buddhist teachers, said, after the ecstasy, the laundry. We have gone through that. And you go through that. You can have all kind of insights and understandings and that, yes, 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 and you leave the room, it's gone. And it has to be that way. Don't ever be ashamed to be a biological system. Don't ever try not to be that, as long as you have that kind of a biological mind. I so often address people who very obviously have what is called a social fear. This kind of an anxiety not to be seen, you know. And though I'm often saying, you know, that is not a good mind. The mind is a biological mind. The mind says it should not be like that. It's biological. It should not be that. It should be otherwise. We are caught into this one. And so I hear then the proof, so to say, or the help. Can you give me a method which proves that I'm always loved and seen? Anything, you know, tell me what I need to do to be sure. Do you know what I mean? We always want to be sure. Because as a biological system, we are insecure. It can happen this way, it can happen that way. I'm sitting here and looking at that, and then when I go home, there is no audio. So what? Drama? Yes. So many dramas. We want to be sure. We want to be safe. That's why we go to seminars and coaches, to be safe. He has said, and now we do that. And it doesn't work. Because we are kind of juggling with our biological conditioned mind, which is never sure. It cannot be sure. Because the proof is you are not sure. So don't ask me anymore. And don't be happy with your anxiety either. Never ever say, well, it's wonderful to be such a biological system. It's not wonderful. And it's not bad. It's just that. That's all. When we really grasp that, there is still the kind of yearning, a kind of a hope that we can get out of that. And please, I'm not saying now we can get out of that and more of that, more of joy and a bit less of suffering. The problem is, it's constantly told us that's the way to do. The Buddha finally came into the realization of an internal bliss, of harmony, of a mind which does not have these parameters. He said, you can come to that when there is no greed, hatred, and confusion. So none of these parameters anymore here, and you don't behave according to that as we do. He got out of that. And somehow there is a kind of a hope. And he himself should have said, I don't know. If I can do it, you can do it too. That's why we are. We don't know. But somehow deep in us, we still, or we now believe, or we have always believed, that it is not all. At a certain point in the development, in the biological development of humankind, there was this kind of a shift. We had a mental shift. We left the cage of drives and biological behaviors and started to get rid of that. We got into the point where we could stay back and behave differently. All animals, up to us, even to the great apes and chimpanzees and everything, they are all fixed in their biological behavior. They don't have any kind of freedom not to do that. They don't have this kind of an inner staying back and say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. If a lion sees a gazelle, gazelle, and he has hunger, he jumps. If he don't have hunger, he doesn't care. But he does not care when he has hunger. He cannot say, wow, this poor fellow, no, I'm not doing that. This young, let's wait until she got a baby and then I'm there. So let me have another look. No, it's not so. All these biological elements before us are stuck. And I make us aware we are stuck too. We do believe we are free. But when I look at us and what I'm telling you, you are stuck in the biological mind. It has to be that way. It has to be that way. And if it's not that way, you start fighting. Whatever we see now in the world is a biological mind. It's not a human mental mind. It's not. It's fear, aggression, fighting, the human, normal, biological mind. So, though we had at a certain point a kind of a shift in our mental construct, it was not so far enough to stay back. The biological system is still kind of pushing forward. Wherever you are, on your own, in communities, in your families, you see that greed and hatred and confusion and whatever. And that is the biological mind. But there is a beginning of being able to get out of that. We just hear the bell. The Buddha somehow talked about his being able to get out of this biological system. And obviously in his vicinity people could feel he behaves differently, he thinks differently. The way we normally work, he didn't anymore. And there are other people who are like that. So very early, even around the Buddha, kind of 400 before Christ, starting to ask him, what can we do? And what has been transferred to us is called meditation. Meditation just simply says you get out of that conditioned mind. Whatever you believe meditation is wrong. I can tell you. It's not to sit there peacefully and happily. That's biological mind. To achieve something. These meditators, they sat, they waited. They started to watch their mind staying back. Not deliberately, not in your daily life, but on the cushion. For years and days, you kind of withdraw. You might have heard of the 10 years in the first in China. No, the other one, before. Okay. He sat for 11 years in front of the wall. Not because it was really cozy there. And I don't know, most probably someone brought him food. But it is kind of a kind of make us aware it needs a certain mind training. It's not just kind of, by the way. Because you go against the deep, innate, inbuilt biological structure. So the experience after many hundred years, 300, 400 after Christ, the first realizations came up and say, yes, we can experience a mental quality, call it this way. It's not a mind in our perspective. It's a kind of, a quality, a mental quality, where you still kind of have the ability to observe, to watch, and whatever it's possible. But this mind does not have all these parameters and the fears and all that. This is gone. It's, so to say, empty. And now, to describe this mind for us is not possible. We don't have it. We don't have an experience. So we only can hear what someone says. And it's sometimes called emptiness. But it's not emptiness. It's only empty of those fears and parameters and all these kind of things. It is a kind of bare attention or pure consciousness. And the wonderful term is Rigpa from the Dzogchen tradition. It clearly says, let's go here. Do I brought it from Rigpa? No, pay attention. Okay. It's where we come to, that is our primordial mind. And in Zen it's sometimes called a no mind. It's primordial, empty. But it's not empty. It's a kind of quality which can think. The kind of a potential. This mind is vivid, clear, wide, open, but it does not have content. I think that is good enough to at least indicate. Thai simply uses the word true nature. Okay. To me, all that needs to be understood with different explanations, because that is from where everything starts. And because of that, we are not anymore in the biological mind. So, to this tradition, which is now kind of 4,000, 2,500, that is proposed as a method, as a training, as a mind training to get out of the biological system. And it is said that the Buddha kind of first one realized. I don't know, but that's the point. We don't know what the Buddha really said, because I always are kind of curious who has been next to him to take notes when you read the sutra. Nobody was there. No, not yet. No. So I will go through that in the next talks. But that is why it actually all begins with trust. If you don't have trust, and not trust God or the Guru or whoever, but trust that there is a mind, a mental capacity which does not have any content, then I will ask you, give it a try. I give you some trainings. So whatever we do is the training to an experience of that. And if it's only for a split second, you can take it. Gone. Yeah, sure. I mean, the biological mind is that strong, and it doesn't want to get out, because it's afraid that we die. But that other mind, the pure awareness, the Rigpa, doesn't care, because it doesn't have that. So, can you get what I'm saying? It's not that we can get rid of that. That is a very wrong approach, and it's a wrong approach in almost all Buddhist traditions. We don't get rid of something in order to get there. There is no getting rid and practice that. That is traditional biological mind. We are into a different mind, and this different mind does not have that. You see, it's a totally different approach. As long as you believe you are here to get rid of something, you're under biological mind. Okay? It's very important to understand. So, the training is very simple, because it somehow is as potential there. Otherwise it wouldn't work. There is a potential as human beings began so many 100,000 years ago. And the beginning was, we can stay back from our conditioning. When in the morning, I'm always sitting there in the morning, 6 o'clock, 6:30, and then in spring and early summer, the air comes along. In just the last weeks, I sit there, and she or he, I don't know, then looked at me, and I said, "Hello, good morning." And I know she is up to Helga's garden for that very special green stuff, Yeah. And whoever that is, a man or woman, she jumps up against the fence, and they are not getting angry. They don't go into the kitchen and bite Aaron. He has done that. He should get him. Police, they just stay there. Okay, that's it. And then after 50 minutes, she comes along. Good morning. And go. That's all. These animals cannot kind of bite Aaron. They don't have anger in that way because he is not the foe. They have ones, that's not the point. But they don't have the liberty, the freedom to change that. And they don't go into the kitchen in the morning. Hey, I don't get it. Do you have some muesli for me? They can't. They only eat that and nothing else. And now you hear again how much people are still animals. They only eat that, not that. Because of tradition, religion, and I don't know what. So, in the beginning, and it's maybe million years old, something happened in our mental construct. We somehow had the chance to leave the biological sphere. Please have that in mind. That is the beginning of the training. To realize that, to experience it, I can stay back. And that is to be realized. That is to be realized that strong that you don't need to believe. You don't need to trust anymore. It is clear to you. It is an experience. It is saying, it's something you can say, yes, I can. And I have done that yesterday. I want to kick this fellow, and I didn't do it. And I don't know why. You don't need to know. You had the power, the mental power not to do that, what your conditioned biological mind would do. That's the freedom. Not much yet, but enough to give us the trust and say, I'm on the right path. And I can go on that. I can continue. Now again, don't fall in the trap of a biological mind. I can do that now. I should do that more often. Or if I can't do that, oh, poor fellow, now I've practiced so long and I'm still doing that. You're in the biological mind. To move out of the biological mind into the spiritual mind is only observing. No action. Nothing of I should do that and how what a bad man I am. I'm still nagging or whatever. Yeah, sure. You're still in the biological mind. And you can get out, but not by methods. Because the methods are biological. I hope I make that true, tangible. That's what I said before when people have social fear. They want to get out of that by methods, to be proved, to sure, and it doesn't work. You only can get out of the biological system by observing from the other shore, as so to say. That's all. You only observe. So the first point is, the first training is, and you do that, it's not that difficult. You are observing and you are sure that you are in your biological mind. So far we just take it as, well, okay, I do that. No. When I'm staying in the line, or I approach the table with the food and I start kind of, hopefully they have this one. Then now I'm asked you to kind of relax a little bit, sit higher, biological mind. That's all. Don't be angry with you or judgmental. That is biological mind. It's so difficult to get out of that. And it, on the other side, it's so easy. The only way is observing. And that's the first word in Buddhism. And the first word for all others who are on the road, so to say. The first word and the first mental capacity is stay back and observe. Not observing, and this word is observer, like a football team, kind of judging. It's kind of a pay attention. There is. Without any comment, without any judgments, It is at times it's difficult. At times it's easy. So today you move back and forth in this training. When you go through the woods, walking meditation, you have a great chance not to look for blueberries. If you can. They are. Then you're gone. So easy. Walking meditation is the most challenging practice I've ever seen. Well, you can walk. That's not the point. But to go through this world and not judging, and not doing this, and not having that thought, but just be there, is almost impossible for us. So we have these two trainings for today. The first is to realize, be clear, without any judgments and so on. Now I'm in the biological mind. The way I hold myself, the way I talk, the way I think, well, that is a kind of fool that will never sleep. Biological mind. That's okay. Provided now you say, now I'm in the biological mind. Don't start jumping and say you shouldn't say, and someone said, when you eat, you only eat, and all these kind of things. Yes and no. Otherwise, you force yourself into a behavior. That is biological mind. Tradition, culture, whatever. We are not doing that. We just strengthen our capacity to stay back. And if we can't, which is normal for us, we notice. That's all. Is that clear? There's this beautiful, very short encounter from with the Buddha with this someone who was not a disciple of him, but who had heard this man could teach me. Pahiya is its name. And he clearly pressed on the Buddha, teach me. And the Buddha was kind of, you see I'm here for Pinder, but for arms round, But he kept on saying, and traditionally after the third time you have to answer. So Buddha reluctantly turned to him and said, well, nothing else. You should train yourself thus. In reference to the scene, that is to say in good proper English, if you see something, there will be only seeing. That's good enough. The rest I leave up to you. I can go through the whole thing. So you are aware of something, of a tone, of a noise, a picture, or whatsoever. It's not saying now you are kind of in emptiness. We are on to the second step. Huh? You are totally in your normal life, and you look at that picture, at that face, at the way someone keeps himself. And at that point, you don't say anything. You don't say mentally, my goodness, great. Nothing like that. You just keep to the fact of observing. You have heard me so often do that. And I tell you, it works. It's the only next step in our training towards a mind which does not judge. Constantly in our daily life, going to the food line, being outside, seeing someone, being in the supermarket, whatever. I sometimes condense it into this, there is. There is. And it's still a bit of a, it's not pure yet. I can still say, well, there is this face. In the background somewhere is a kind of resonation. Something like, I wouldn't say that. Done. Out. Back. Okay, you're right. I feel that kind of, I'm not clear. I am not authentic. I am now playing the enlightened one. It's called the spiritual ego. The spiritual ego everybody has, who is afraid of, who is a social fear. You know, kind of always happy and nice and friendly, though you're not. And the same is with this next step. The first is already kind of difficult because you don't want to admit that you're only in your biological mind. And at the evening, Rashni always reminded us in the evening before you sleep, you write down how many of this, how many of that. You know. And in the first years, many years, I really did that. Before sleeping, I rehearsed my day, going back, and from there, going forward and say, that was the situation, and that was the situation, and then you said this, and no, okay, observing, okay. And so by the time you learn to be Bahia, it's a very short thing. In 5 meters book, this one. That's the next step. She will tell you where you find it. So we have for today is stepping on the path of the spiritual mind. We are only here to leave the biological mind. We are not here to kind of dampen that a little bit, push it down. Now I'm a little bit more friendly. I hear that I should be compassionate. But how, it's so difficult. Yeah, sure. You are still deeply stuck in your biological system. And that biological system just simply does not have that. The Dalai Lama, I will quote him next year more often, is so kind of compassionate. He says, don't say compassion. Say altruistic. Okay? Altruistic. You do something that the other one is saved. I kind of go and help someone because I want that this person is better off. Altruism. And then he said, well, actually, if I look at it very closely, altruism is the ultimate egoism. Because you do that, the other person says, thank you. And people do that very often. They are kind of seemingly friendly and so on, just to get the praise. It's not real. It's not authentic. It doesn't come out of that mind. So it's not that kind of bring body and mind together and you are there. It's a beginning. But then a thorough training needs to come. A really thorough training. You bring over the years this bare attention into your life. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to bring you into kind of a spiritual ego. Something now I am like this. Have a look how I walk or whatsoever. That is a show. It needs to come from deep from the heart. And it is possible. But it needs training. And the training begins with observation. And the observation is the mind which is not judgmental. Do I have that? Yeah. The first to have written about mindfulness was Nyanaponika, the German monk. The book is called the Buddhist meditation, the core, the heart of Buddhist meditation, like this. And it's a very thorough explanation of what is sati, mindfulness, and so on, and what is the training, what is the path. Bare attention is a clear and single-minded awareness of what actually happens to us and in us. It is called bare because it attends just to the bare facts of a perception as presented. That's all. Simple. There is. And there is either my biological mind or their attention. And it needs already there this kind of a willingness, so to say, or this joy, or this intention to move out into that mind. And don't ever think, now it's the last term, that it is easy. The biological mind is so strong. A blueberry is enough to bring you out into that. And let alone two. So it's like that. But we can be very confident there is a path. there's a training, and there's a process, and I can adjust it. Tell you, it works. It's not difficult, but it needs constant awareness. It needs constant stepping back. And I will, on the path, we will see what other practices and come in to help us on the path. The first now is the most difficult. We do not want to be as spiritual, as so-called spiritual. We do not want to be not compassionate. Now I have practiced that for so many years. And I'm still judging. Yes, that's all. Okay. But we're on the path. We're on the training. So be friendly with yourself. And that is why I'm so often talk about the paramedium. Be friendly. It's so deep-rooted. It's so immense deep-rooted. And there are so funny tricks in normal human beings to get out of that. And they all don't work. The only thing which, the only behavior or training is to step back. That was the first move from the human out of the biological system, from the biological system into a freedom. And we are just only there, some million years ago. The rest is still biological system. You can look outside. So, to me, we are now, after some million years, finally understand it is possible. There is a mind which is available to us. And each one of us has to be in that mind. And then it starts spreading. Okay? Good. Enjoy your day. We have enough blueberries. We are constantly provided with, every day we have a little pot on our door. Thank you for all those people. I really love them. Okay. So enjoy your day in silence, in observance, in stillness, in mental clarity, wherever you are. And then tomorrow afternoon you have a sharing. You share how that worked and have fun. Okay. Thank you for listening.